Today we're talking about Zen and the Arts. This is the last section of The Way of Zen by Alan Watts.
Woo.
After this book, we'll be taking a break until January, I think. Unless we find some
Woo.
nice little one-off essay or book to read. Then maybe we can do it like a 1 week thing instead of, a multiple week thing.
We can
Um,
also have like a voice chat Dharma discussion at the same time we would normally have a book club thing, if that works better.
yeah,
Yes, please. That sounds good.
that would appeal probably to book
The
club people,
masses.
the masses even.
I
Yeah.
still, I still need to hear about those 7 factors.
Oh, that's right. We could cover that at the end if you want.
Hey, yeah. Hopefully the Raiden guy is gonna be late. We'll see.
I liked this chapter, but I will say that I think a big chunk of it ended up being more of a history lesson, which was interesting, and I was glad to read. Um, who else got to read the chapter?
I read it, and like he refers to a lot of like art and artists, and it
Mm-hmm.
really helped like googling them.
Hmm.
So what on earth is he describing? So
Yeah.
this chapter, in theory, could be super visual.
Yeah. He does include some images in the middle of the chapter, but it does feel like there could have been a lot more, considering how
Yeah, of
visually
course,
focused the chapter is. Yes.
the quality was not like amazing.
This
Yeah.
is, in fact, an older book, though. When was this written, Max?
Oh, uh, I'm gonna say maybe the 50s or 60s.
Yeah. So
I'm
we're
gonna say 75. Let's see
Oh,
who's right.
really? Was it? Oh, this is one of his later works then.
well, even then, we're reading a book that's still 45 years old. Yeah, like a 45, 46-year-old book.
That seems weird.
Yeah, yeah.
It's older than Rocky Horror.
No.
Yeah.
I hear really quiet squealing.
It's Sam.
Oh, okay.
Sam's Sam's quiet.
I feel like I'm talking normally.
You're fine.
You're talking normal, but your mic is picking up almost none of it.
That's what I feared.
Oh, there you are. Yeah. I have
That's
you
better.
turned up quite a bit, though. But that's fine. For those of you who are not super savvy with Discord, I'll remind you that if you right click someone's name, you can control their individual volume. And so, like, you can turn some people up, some people down.
Bala.
What?
Yeah, notably, Bala, I gotta turn him down to like 60%.
Really? Am I that loud?
Yeah, it's fine.
We
You-
would call you enthusiastic.
Yeah, you project
No,
well.
I just have a really, really good microphone,
And
apparently.
then I've got Sam up to 160% as a
That's
comparison.
not right. Yeah.
Um, okay. I enjoyed the way Alan did a lot of back and forth of discussing the different ways that an Eastern culture and a Western
I was
culture.
absolutely wrong. I was wrong. It's not 1975. It's 1957.
It was 50s. All right.
Yeah.
Well, then it's
you were
even
right.
older. Oh my goodness.
I got it the other way around.
So
Yeah.
65-year-old book.
Yeah.
So that's worth noting for quality, for as far as like putting in pictures and stuff.
They didn't have pictures back then.
You're right. Pictures were in modern invention.
They only
It
had
wasn't
etchings
invented till the
on
Blackberries.
cables.
Yeah, they didn't have pictures in books.
I think they did, but I don't want to go down that train of thought right now. um. Oh my God, brain, stop.
Hey, there you go.
Sorry, my brain was about to but all of these things, and I was like, no, brain, no.
That was the first highlight. One showing is worth 100 sayings.
Yep, yeah, and so this feels like a lost opportunity on Alan's part to show us more. But I think it's fine. He does a pretty decent job of unraveling some of this thought process.
was
And
very curious to hear your perspective as an artist.
mhm.
Are you
So
a Zen artist,
hmm.
or
So
are you materialistic artist
am I a what
who
artist?
conquers the medium, fights against paper and paint, and wins gloriously? And it's purely your mind. It's not the universe at all. It's just you.
I think for the most part I have a half Zen approach to art.
Okay.
But I also do a lot of work in watercolors. And watercolors are probably the one of the mediums that are going to fight you the hardest and do what they want to do regardless of what you think they should be doing.
Perfect.
And so if I would say that if you want to experience what Zen art should feel like, do watercolors. uh
Or even better, inks, watercolor inks.
yeah,
Yeah.
either or. They kind of have they have a very similar way of working though.
Yeah.
I will say the inks are
I'm talking about like,
messier.
you ever seen
Quite
those
right.
Japanese paintings where they used ink to make it look like watercolor? I'm talking about that.
That's later in this chapter actually.
Oh,
My
It's
my wife
Sumie.
uses the Sumi ink. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Sumi
On a
inks.
wax paper.
We get
I
back.
think.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. We'll get to it.
yeah, we get to that a little later in the chapter. Um, for the very technique involves the art of artlessness. This being like a Zen approach to most things. Of what is the saying? It's sitting for the sake of sitting. We talked about in one of these chapters of meditation of not letting the goal get in the way of the moment. That's what's important. And same with the art and the. I like this. I like this a lot. I didn't highlight it. Controlled accident.
Ah, yes.
And I think that really describes my relationship with watercolors a lot. And so I five. Pretty good.
I mean,
So yeah. Hmm?
there's a reason that Alan wrote a book called The Watercourse Way.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing, the whole principle of water and Zen,
Mm-hmm.
seeking the lowest ground, that whole thing.
Right. So to answer your question, as
you
an
wrote a book?
artist, I vibe really well with this chapter. And it makes me want to go sit and paint, really.
That's perfect.
um, did like where he explains for Zen there is no duality, no conflict between the natural element of chance and the human element of control. Um, driving home that even in the arts, like I think people are very like non conspicuous about the idea. They don't feel very, oh, you're gonna go sit and paint, unless they're thinking about fine art where you're like gonna paint a realism portrait or something. The idea of sitting down to paint is very elementary school to them, and I don't think they consider the application of bringing a non-dualistic mind to it. I think that's very I guess I'll say that I think it's a worthwhile practice to not assume and just apply a more broad application of this mindset, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
I think that even like the most controlled photorealistic art and stuff like that still has this element in it because like even in like let's say photography, right, where you just basically like capturing and it's perfect image, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's still the process that like you do something and it surprises you and then you kind of like enhance that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still a collaboration between you and the rest of the world. Like I don't think
Absolutely.
anybody just has stuff in their head and they just poop it on paper and it's perfect the
Mm-hmm.
way they had it in their head, right?
There are
So
some people who I would argue might be that skilled,
okay.
but they
Yeah.
are very few and far between.
And I don't think it's actually a benefit, like just let the universe think for you, it's pretty cool.
I think in terms of Zen and in this practice, I would be inclined to agree with you that it's not to a benefit to have those skills necessarily. They can I think interfere with like you said, the let it do its own thing. And yeah, yeah, I think I could agree with that. Obviously, out of context, I think conversation changes, but within context, I can certainly agree. Let's see. Oh, he does so. It's so difficult to talk about because he provides so much context for everything he's talking about in this chapter that it is difficult to parse apart what is more of a discussion piece, I suppose. And so he jumps into talking about, I guess, the more Eastern cultural, like, that the brush, the ink, and the paper will determine the result as much as your hand, which I enjoy in kind of what you and I were just talking about, Bala. And then that Taoism, Confucianism, and Zen are expressions of a mentality that feels at home here in this idea, in this framework. I I really do like this chapter, but I find an issue with discussion with it of like I just want to quote it, like just read you the entire chapter out loud, and that's not a discussion. So, trying to piece apart what's going to be an interesting conversation is a little difficult. I found it very interesting here where I have highlighted nature is much our father as our mother, since the Tao by which it works is originally manifested in the yang and the yin. And yeah. Do, do, do.
I am back.
Oh, you came back. How's that going?
I had a Wi-Fi glitch.
That's the worst. I'm gonna skip over here because I think this is a worthwhile topic to talk about. I highlighted hurry, and all that involves is fatal. And I think that this can be especially true in art, even for people who are moving quickly. There's a difference between you're just processing quickly versus hurrying. What are your anybody got thoughts on that?
Mm, I would say that if you hurry, you're not as in control,
Mm-hmm.
right? You kind of go beyond your comfort level too fast, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so I would agree with that.
A friend of mine who has children of various ages likes to tell his kids that fast is slow and slow is fast. And I think it's very. The quote is hurry, and all that involves is fatal. Um, and it reminds me of what you said. You can mess up a lot, but it's if I move so quickly without paying attention and doing it correctly, then I've messed up in such a way that I'll probably have to redo it. So I haven't saved time at all. You know,
I know this pain viscerally.
right? And I think it's definitely a hard lesson I had to learn growing up, especially with my more non-neurotypical brain. Of um, if I can't do it right the first time, when will I have time to do it again?
Mm-hmm.
I can
And
confirm that with my farming experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially the fatal part can actually be really fatal.
Mm.
So,
Goodness.
yeah, anytime you go to hurry or haste, you make sacrifices in your attention and your behavior so that you think, well, this will be a good enough job as long as it gets done quickly. That's the priority. But because you're so focused on time, you're not actually focused on um, the quality and if it is in fact going to be good enough. And that, for me at least, has bitten me in the ass so many times in terms of like I remember I install speakers into churches, and I'm talking like 14-foot long speakers sometimes.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it gets to be very late in the day, and you just say, I want to get this up and leave. I will drill this hole very quickly so that I can go home.
Mm-hmm.
And then you drill it bad. And, a lot of these things require more than one hole to be next to each other. So if you drill one bad, the rest of them are also now bad.
Right.
So now you've just not only wasted time with this hole, you've undone work that was fine.
Right. Exactly.
But like, that's one of those things that just having someone tell you haste makes waste, that won't get the point home. It just won't. You have to step on a rake 3 or 4 times before you realize, oh, I shouldn't do that.
Yeah, you have to make waste. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is why suffering is necessary for enlightenment.
Ooh, good tie-in.
There.
Have the attitude of the tree, the attitude of purposeless growth. I like that concept.
Cancer.
Hmm?
Cancer.
Cancer. Trees are like
Yeah.
cancer. No. Um.
Well, that's a nice point, right? That's kind of what is it that distinguishes tree from cancer, right?
Hmm.
And they grow purposelessly,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the tree is kind of doing like the right thing, what it's supposed to do.
Tree is still doing tree things. The
Yeah.
cancer deviates away from that and just becomes an illness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whether the tree things make it look ugly to us humans or not, the tree doesn't give a shit.
Trees are disgusting.
I'm gonna mute myself because I'm gonna make some noises while I destroy boxes, but I will pop in
Okay.
when opportune.
All right. I think the chapter's starting. This is when it starts to make its turn to a lot of interesting history and dates and people, and just begins to talk about more culturally contextual words and phrases. So here we have almost every profession and craft is in Japan is as a do, that is a Tao or way, not unlike what used to be known in the West as a mystery. I had to read this sentence a few
What
times.
used to be known as a mystery?
I don't know still. I read this paragraph like a few times and I'm not 100% I think I might understand what a mystery might have to do with the Tao. I that was intriguing.
Weird.
I think part of it's just got to do with the whole. Its original meaning doesn't have a meaning, so the Tao that is named is not the Tao. So like
Yeah.
trying to translate that over, being like, well, I mean, I don't know what to call it, man. It's a mystery.
Yeah, that's fair. Um so then we get into some dates over here where we talk about he jumps past the persecution of Chinese Buddhism and to afterwards in 845. Um talks about the influence of that on the growth of the Chinese culture and then the Southern Sung dynasty 1127 to 1279. And a lot of just how these things began to wrap around each other and the studies that happened and how monks um, confined their interests and activities to purely religious affairs, I guess. Stepping out of, I think, it looks to be separating from scholars a bit. The Chinese gentleman scholar was not a specialist, and it was quite against the nature of the Zen monk to confine his. Oh, no, he was more broad. Zen monks are broad. I'm sorry. My bad. I convoluted that. Yep. Clicking that button. Uh, and then we get to talk about style of painting. Here we go.
Mhm.
Closest to feeling of Zen was calligraphy style of painting, done with black ink on paper or silky, usually painting a poem. So we get to Chinese calligraphy, which is highly revered still, I think. It's lovely art. I have dabbled in it a bit. I used to teach a basics lesson on it. Mostly, and I don't know if you guys know this, the way you write Chinese characters is so wild and
It's crazy.
specific.
I have actually done calligraphy in the context of Aikido, which is really bizarre. Like, there's this exercise where you kind of attach the brush to your waist and you paint with it by moving your entire body. And it's done like to make you aware of like martial art type of movements.
Mhm.
So it's a really cool combination. I'm not sure if somebody just made it up or if it's actually a real thing, but
Mhm.
it's really cool.
I wouldn't be surprised if it were real because, back in the day, if anyone remembers the samurai times, but
The
uh,
samurai times.
if you are good in one thing, you are good in many things. So, like, a samurai is skilled in poetry, calligraphy, the art of tea ceremony, and combat. So it's like one of those. Well, they all kind of go together. So,
Yep.
if there's a cultural hang on from that, I would not be surprised.
Mhm. Uh, Alan calls this way of doing things perfect instrument for the expression of unhesitating spontaneity. I like this. I enjoy it. I also am a big fan of ink works. I enjoy working in ink myself, so it's very fun to see so much time dedicated to talking about it, I guess. And then what Selenium was bringing up earlier, sumie was the Japanese style of painting. It was kind of this type of ink painting. Do do do. Talking about the years here. You can Google these later if you want.
Yeah, the paper is a big part of it.
Yep.
The rice paper just soaks the liquid like insane.
Well, and then yeah, so like I think a lot of people not working with mediums of any sort don't realize how connected your medium can be with your canvas in this instance. So like you said, that rice paper acts very particularly with the ink versus if I took that ink to a piece of watercolor paper or if I took watercolors to rice paper.
Wow, I never thought of that. Literally never.
A
That's
lot of
amazing.
people don't.
Okay,
It's
yeah, I guess that would work. That's very cool.
yeah, but they would have different results. That's I mean it's just something interesting. I feel like the rice paper would be very fragile for drawing purposes, Selenium.
Yeah, you can't go many times over it. You
Mhm.
just have to get it right. No corrections.
Mhm. Well, it reminds me of when we do caricatures at the zoo. We don't sketch beforehand. I just go straight to the paper with my marker, and it's a very interesting. I would say once I get in the rhythm of it on a busier day, it can get very zen-like in that I'm just going, you know. I try not to, you can't overthink it. You just gotta rely on the fact that your marker and the paper and whatever else you've learned know what they're doing, and you do it.
Oh, that's brave.
I guess.
That At that point, once you're in that sort of flow, what's there to think about? You see them with your eyes, and you're
Mhm.
drawing them.
Mhm.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
it's just a caricature, so if it looks bad, it's like, that's funny.
But that's
Right.
where, yeah, I don't know. It's a combination of those things, but right. But it's also trusting, I guess, in the process somewhat. That natural
No.
process of the people will form themselves on my paper for me. But that's a whole thing, and it's weird to tell people who haven't been drawing a lot.
Well, I mean, it's sort of the same thing with like carving a sculpture.
Mm-hmm.
It's already in there. You're just getting rid of the stuff on top of it.
Yeah, exactly. He does point out over here a lot of Sumie paintings leave a lot of blank space. They don't fill it up with a lot of colors like you would, like say, in most modern watercolor techniques. But really capitalizing on that blank space to inform you what the few marks that might be on the page mean. I think so. He doesn't include a lot of examples, but when we do get to the examples, there's one I think that does a good job of demonstrating that. Um, the secret lies in knowing how to balance form with emptiness, and above all, in knowing when one has said enough. That's a really hard lesson to learn.
Oh yeah.
That's really difficult. Um, because I know I absolutely have a bad habit of overworking the page. I also have a bad habit of underworking the page. This is a dual problem, by the way. You can do both. You can not add enough, but also you can add too much. But that's not Zen. That's not what we're talking about. Brain.
Hey, everything is Zen, Des. Just believe in yourself. Actually, wait. Don't believe in yourself.
I was about
That's
to
the one.
say, Max, the point is for me to not
Stop believing in
to
yourself.
stop believing
Yeah,
in myself
that's it.
and realize there is no self.
There is no belief.
There is no spoon.
Right. Hello, dogs. Yes. Hello. Don't scream at
Doggo.
me. Don't scream at me. You don't have to use that. I see you already.
We talk about some specific
please.
artists and the Sangha style of Chinese characters, and how they make that happen. Which
Oh my
really,
God, Sangha.
Alan goes into so much detail. It's really interesting. Talks about the materials, what's happening. Um, talks about various artists and how their styles are connected. Like it's an impressive amount of research, honestly. Like it almost feels like an art historian has written this book now, like or an art historian is standing over Alan's shoulder, going, "You can talk about this now."
I mean, while Alan Watts gets a lot of criticism for being an entertainer rather than, a monk or whatever, he was also a scholar and,
Mm-hmm.
Had gone to school to be a priest for, I don't know if it was Catholicism or no, I don't think it was. But, like, he was on his shit. It's just the information he was working with was very before the internet. Yoga had been here since the Chicago World's Fair.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been very he was a pioneer of Zen in the West at all. Him and Suzuki. So he makes some mistakes, but that's I don't think due to a lack of research on his part. And these books certainly allow him to be like, here's all the context my spoken lectures don't have because they'll put you to sleep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Pretty much. But they're interesting, and if you got the time to read through it, I think it's interesting knowledge.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Like the context is super, super helpful for, uh, seeing how different things relate to each other at the time period,
Mm-hmm.
and how that has changed or not currently. It's also very helpful for me making a working framework of just what is it doing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he did right now.
Oh my goodness.
Cow!
That was great.
Sorry, guys. I have to go.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Bye.
I like the punctuation
Bye.
though with
Draw.
for my own reference, I have looked up some Sangha style art to observe. This man's eyes is wow. Anyway, if y'all didn't know what it looked like, now you do. All right. Going back to the book. Yeah, and I liked the perfect imperfectness where you don't really try to make a perfectly circular circle. You embrace the rough brush, the textures, and the eccentricness that comes with it, but not in an intentional way,
Mm-hmm.
which is the ever paradoxical way of trying to let go of these things that are holding you back. He talks about Western science and its intelligent. It's made nature intelligible in terms of its symmetries and regularities. And then, but this order is Maya, the true suchness. And then he's like, the Western mind is dismayed when ordered conceptions of the universe break down, when the basic behavior of the physical world is found to be principle of uncertainty. He's like, your poor, sad Western brains are gonna freak out when you realize that everything is uncertain. Which is his point, I guess.
Yeah.
And then he talks
What
about
would
huh?
Newton think?
What would Newton think? He'd be so sad.
Or he'd call the apple a liar.
Ooh.
Yeah. Now what? Now what, Apple?
The aimless life is the constant theme of Zen art of every kind, expressing the artist's own inner state of going nowhere in a timeless moment. I liked that quote.
Me too.
Let me get some fun vocab words. Sabi, wabi, aware, Yujin, for you. Yep, those are our vocab
Yep.
words.
Hooray.
Sabi being the more solitary and quiet. Wabi being suchness, can be kind of depressed or sad. A peculiar emptiness, Alan says. Aware is the vanishing away of the world. Yujin, never to be discovered. This mood of not being discoverable or mysterious. For you is taste. That's not what he says. This is a general atmosphere of Zen taste. It's kind of the aimless moments of life. So I like that. I liked he broke down these words for us. I know what they mean. Like some of these I'm very familiar with, but it's nice to have them a refresher. We get to more dates, specific names, art styles, and a discussion towards the beginning of the 17th century. Japanese artists developed offhand style, or heiga. It's a derivative of the Sangha style. And yeah. Just lots of history. This is a very dense chapter. Like it absolutely I think is worth reading and going through. But I agree with Bala, there's just really not enough pictures. You know? Because I'm getting a ton of vocab words. I'm getting like this descriptions of how the style changed, but I'm not 100% what the style looked like in the first place. You know? It'd be great to have a few more examples so I can observe that transformation. I think it's coming. Yeah. Yes. So we're gonna start talking about haikus for a bit here, and calls it, what is it? Wordless poetry to perfection in the haiku. It's this haiku being the next stage of the Zen poetry style, I suppose. Chinese poetry. Da, 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 da. I'm gonna skip ahead and just read a couple of these haikus he quotes.
Okay.
Whatever runs counter to the mind and will of ordinary people hinders the law of men and the law of Buddha. I like where he quotes and it says about haiku that it was taking something that was highbrow and making it so that an ordinary man could be a poet. That kind of, I like when I get to learn about societal changes like this where things are taken off pedestals and made accessible. And so this haiku style, I guess, is not considered highbrow as he has in parentheses, and it just becomes much more day to day. So I like that. Um, One of the aspects of haiku tends to be that same thing we see floating around in that where you want to see the world as it is. So there's the sono mama, just as it is, or just so. And so a lot of haikus, as you're all aware, and I'm just ranting at this point, anyone's welcome to talk at any time, end up being very like just these pictures of day to day, which I personally gravitate to even in my own art of just wanting to capture this exact moment of like, it's so stupid, but the things I enjoy painting are like a half-eaten sandwich or like my tossed aside cherry seeds. You know what I mean? Like I think these are interesting.
They're very observational and kind of in the moment.
Yeah.
And you see kind of a switch from between those and Tonka, which are a bit longer form, which tend to have more of like a zinger at the end in their extra lines. So, yeah.
Very
but
cool.
that just as it is, I think, sums it up pretty well.
Weeds in the rice field. Cut and left lying just so. Fertilizer. I love that one. I'm sorry. Oh, I love haikus. They just delight me. I used to write a ton of poetry when I was a kid. A ton. I never got quite the hang of like really writing haikus, but I think some of their spirit absolutely lent itself to what I was writing as far as just like, there's a thing. This is how I feel about that thing ish. Now it is this.
The only time I've ever felt moved to like write poetry is if I was sad. So I've written maybe like 8 or 9 poems in my life.
So I vibe with that as well. I am most inspired to write poetry when I'm sad. I spent a massive chunk of my childhood very sad.
Oh no!
So like, there.
Oh no!
Sad tiny voice.
I'm sure I've mentioned I had an R-rated childhood, right? Like, this has come
We
up.
don't know we haven't unlocked your backstory yet.
Oh, well, I don't bring it up a ton, just cause. Well, I do. I talk about it and like refer to it, but I don't like tell people the details because I feel like that's unnecessary. I don't need to traumatize you. So yeah, I mean, I just vibe with that. Like, I had the sad times for a few years, and so I just wrote a ton of poetry, and that was a coping mechanism for me that really worked.
Word.
If you ever get the chance, Avery writes some excellent poetry. I love Avery's prose.
Avery is too talented.
Yeah, pretty much.
Avery is a multi-talented, multi-dimensional being.
Many times over the years, Avery has pushed me in interesting ways to accept my own limitations and that it's okay for someone to be better than me at something. but also one of my very good friends. So that's its own conversation. I just talk about how I felt inadequate compared to Avery many times.
That's what book club is for.
Just talking about my deep, like, Avery is just so much better. Oh, and then I had this stupid crush on her for like a couple years. That was fun.
We're
So
still
fun.
recording.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah,
Sorry.
probably.
Avery, I love you.
Let it be known, Avery, that you are loved.
This is a wet and wild episode today.
Avery knows.
Lovely.
I thought this guy was wild. Ryoken? Alan calls him the
lice, fleas, and being utterly soaked with cold rain.
It's
That is just the most.
like, let me summarize this man for you. Lice, fleas, and being soaked in cold rain. That is who he is. He calls him the Japanese Saint Francis. And this is where I think Alan the Entertainer comes out more. Just a little bit. Because that's wild.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this man seems like the kind of person is just wild a little bit. He might a more controlled what's his face? Who like threw his poop at people.
Whoa.
Diogenes.
Wow.
Oh.
What a pull.
Yeah, I know. I have a hard time with words.
No, I was impressed. You did it.
I'm feeling sharp today. It's the 2 cups of decaf coffee I had.
And then and realizing the inferiority complex has just got you in high gear now.
Yep. Actually, I've had more caffeine probably from the cup of hot chocolate I had, because chocolate has caffeine in it. If y'all didn't know that, some people
You have
don't.
caffeine in it.
Yep.
Currently.
Currently.
This is caffeine des.
Caffeine does.
Caffeine does.
Des, I like that your name is also the end of a sentence in Japanese.
Is it?
Yep.
Huh.
At least your nickname. Or
Des?
shortening of
Like Desu?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's been a joke for years.
Well, I just clued in on it, and I'm happy about it.
Desu. Oh yeah.
The thief left it behind the moon at the window. See, if you bring
These
if you
are
bring
the
a bad
most,
read on it,
like dramatic posing at the well, thinking so hard about how melancholy you are. Like,
I love it though. Like I want to look up more of this guy's like haikus just cuz like
I enjoy them, but I do understand the description of this person.
yeah.
From them. Yeah.
He's like, I guess I at least have the freaking moon in my window. Now that you've stolen everything. I know that's probably not how he felt about it. Or at least, I guess, ideally. But still funny. The wind brings fallen leaves enough to make a fire. See, that's written by a man desperate for things to make a fire with, to me. Like, he's just like, I guess I'll use leaves.
Let's see, what do I have around here? Leaves. Okay.
All right.
That'll do.
That'll do. So this reminds me, I don't know why, but his haikus vibe with me so hard. It just reminds me of, like, you know, if you haven't gone grocery shopping in so long, but you really aren't ready to go grocery shopping yet. And so you're just, like, looking around your kitchen for any caloric sustenance, and you're like, this'll do, I guess.
Yep.
Another bowl of rice with a little soy sauce. I'll live, I guess. I'm not dying today. I don't know. This just kind of reminds me of that feeling, that exact feeling of like, this will keep me alive. till I get off
That's
my,
pretty zen. I can dig it.
you know.
Yeah. Because I mean, like, Zen really isn't about that whole extravagance thing. It's just like I'll eat my rice and then I'll go to bed. Like that's the whole.
Eat when you're hungry, sleep when you're tired. That's it.
Hold on, I'll be right back.
Max has left us. They don't love us anymore. When life is empty, with respect to the past and aimless, with respect to the future, the vacuum is filled by the present normally reduced to a hairline, a split second in which there is no time for anything to happen. I think we talked about that a little bit briefly earlier, which is this idea of letting the present be the all and not focusing on, future, past. I like this quote. If Christianity is wine and Islam coffee, Buddhism is most certainly tea. I can ride with that based on my experiences of all these things. Here we get into some images. This is like the one I googled a little bit. Look at those eyes. Crazy. I like the Zen rock garden idea. I think I would have a really hard time though, not wanting to just like mess up the perfect lines when I saw them. I just want to stick my hand in it and like, you know what I mean? Have a tactile feeling of just messing that line up.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another art.
What is going on in this picture?
I don't know. He seems to be pouting. I'm sure he's meditating.
Is this like a cave wall around that?
It looks like a cave.
Okay. At first I thought they were like, it was like a creek. I don't know what I thought.
So it's either a cave or I could see this almost being the base of a very large tree.
Yeah.
But I like the texture.
Mm.
But it's so funny. This the style has like no concern about anything feeling like it belongs together, I guess. Cuz to me, if this were a modern piece of art, you'd be like, stylistically, these are not the same.
Right. That guy's robes don't match
This
like
looks
the
like it
textured
was
background.
collaged together.
Yup.
So I always think that. So when I visit like art history museums, art museums, it's so interesting to see things in a style or rendered in such a way that you're like, we haven't learned anything. Like, we just continue to do art the same way.
We're still doing this.
We're still doing it the same. Like, it's basically the same.
Yeah.
Like, even cartoons, they're not that unique, you know?
Yep.
They go back so far. Anyway, that's just it's so amazing. So interesting. Oh, and then we get to talk about tea ceremony. I didn't know this necessarily about the tea ceremony, that the items that are used at this ceremony are often picked in connection to the guests of the ceremony.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know much about tea ceremony. But that's kind of cool.
Yeah, so apparently there's like almost this dedicated time like after you drink the tea where people kind of inspect and talk about the items. Because the host or the master of the tea ceremony often has chosen these items with like the idea of specific interest to different guests.
Okay.
So that was interesting. And he talks about a whisk, so that tells me immediately this is probably like a green tea matcha situation. But
yeah,
because whipping it into froth, it says here, which is a different tea preparation than I think a lot of people think of necessarily, because there's a lot of
yeah, most people usually think of like steeping a tea.
Yeah, the British style, if you will.
Yeah.
English. I'll call it the English style. The English style of preparing tea. I thought this was interesting. So they've especially traditionally like favored the rice bowls of the cheapest quality, peasantware of crude texture from which the tea masters have selected unintentional masterpieces of form. They're like, this is a thing that is not expensive or technically impressive, but is like a masterpiece of what it is, I guess, is what he's saying. Like it's done really well.
This is perfect at being what it is.
Yeah, exactly. It's perfect at being what it is. I like that sensation. I like that feeling and way of approaching things.
Yeah.
Let me get the. I thought there was a name for it, so I'm kind of interested in the fact that he doesn't use it. That when something breaks, you reform it with gold concrete to almost give it a new life.
Name for it,
There's a name for it, and he doesn't mention it.
Weird. Yeah, that seems almost like.
Yeah.
Usually he's very good about throwing in the specific terminology.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Let's see. Japanese practice fixing things with gold. Kintsugi.
Yeah.
Kintsugi. Yeah. And so then he doesn't mention it. Which is weird. Here we go. Some examples.
Mm-hmm.
Alan doesn't give you pictures, but I will. I like it. I think that's such a great. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, and on this one they added something because maybe it lost a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Well, Max, you're back.
I am back.
I had no idea. Hello.
We're talking about Kintsugi and how much I like it.
Woo!
And how weird it is that Alan Watts didn't mention it.
I know. It's so weird. He
By
doesn't
name.
throw the
Mentioned
term.
the thing, but not the name, which
Yeah.
is odd for him.
It's so weird. I try to take this mindset into a lot of my life if I can. I obviously definitely get pulled in by ooh, shiny, that's pretty. I want that thing because it's new. But as often as possible, trying to see my things in such a way that's like, all right, but how can I just refreshen or bring new life to this thing instead of getting a new thing? Easier said than done, though. I'll tell
Just
you.
stand on your head.
There you go.
There you go.
And it's upside down. That would be fun.
That's the solution for every problem, Des. But you know why no one knows? Because no one does it.
Ah.
See?
Probably because the blood rushes to their head and they pass out like me.
But before that, they think super hard because all the blood. See?
Oh, get back into it. And then he talks about gardening using the cha no yu. It's kind of a more accordance with the canons. Yep. Okay. Intentionalist intention of form. And applying it to gardening or tea ceremonies or whatever. And then it talked about like a monk. Like I hadn't really looked into this before, so it was interesting to have this concept introduced to me of they'll take rocks that they think look cool and stick them somewhere so moss will grow on them for a few years, and then they'll put them back in their garden.
Gosh, this sounds like a thing that I just do. Oh, weird rock. Let me just scoop it and move it over here.
I like this rock.
And collect it. Uh-huh.
That's a nice boulder.
It's a nice boulder. Big, beautiful rock. I mean, I get it, but it's just interesting to me to go. I like the part where they're like, I'm not just gonna add moss to this rock. I'm gonna go put it somewhere so moss just naturally gets on the rock. That's playing the long game, though. I don't know if I'd have that kind of patience if I wanted that rock.
I'd forget about the rock a week later.
Right? You feel like that rock's gone. I don't even.
I moved it, and now it's where it should be. And
Having done similar things, I would like obsess over the rock and like check it every day. And of course, this would make the moss somehow not grow. Like that's
start
my
watering the rock and singing to it.
Perform little rituals in front of the rock. Just, someday it'll work.
And now we have religion.
And then suddenly Sam is worshiping the rock, and we don't know what to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Or is Sam worshiping the moss?
See, but then people start worshiping Sam because clearly, they know something's up we don't know about, so we should like supplicate or something.
Suddenly I'm like
yeah,
prophet of whatever moss rock thing is happening.
This is such a good analogy
you're
for
the prophet
religion.
of the moss. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's how it works, everyone.
I mean, but really,
Well,
isn't it?
I didn't realize I was out here creating mini religions in my own mind, but I guess it's good to know. Be a little self-aware. Nice.
All right. Talk about the rocks. And then we're going to skip ahead a bit to the brush must draw by itself.
Powerful. Powerful.
I like this. And some artist named Dojin.
Oh, Dojin!
Dojin.
Old Dojin.
Was he an artist?
Eli.
I mean, he was a Zen guy. Dogen? I don't know, man. Is it Dogen?
Here's some art related to him.
Look at that. Look at that mug.
There seems to be a consensus on what he looked like, though. I feel like I got a pretty
round. He's got a round head.
Good sense of what he looks like.
Yeah, he's pretty round. Yeah, look at that.
Such a good portrait.
Yeah. Man, I wish I have like portraits like that when I'm dead. Quick, start doing portraits of me.
Okay. Max's portraits will line the memorial hall.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the samurai. There we go. But what does he say about the samurai? I forget. Zen-inspired samurai were... So he's talking about the artist and craftsman, then he gets into the Zen-inspired samurai, but what about them? To travel is to be alive, but to get somewhere is to be dead. Deep. Kind of dark. I like it. Planned surprises are as much of a contradiction as intentional satori. And whoever aims at satori is, after all, like a person who sends himself Christmas presents for fear that others will forget him. You must simply face the facts. Zen is all that side of life which is completely beyond our control. I like how very to the point he starts to get here. I'm like, you just gotta deal with it, bro. For who controls the controller?
The hand.
The hand.
The hand controls the controller.
For if we open our eyes and see clearly, it becomes obvious that there is no other time than this instant, and that the past and the future are abstractions without any concrete reality. Until this has become clear, it seems that our life is all past and future. Yep. Gets into some good explanations here. Definitely worth reading. Ooh, I liked this quote. It does not come from anywhere. It is not going anywhere. It is not permanent, but it is not impermanent. Though moving, it is always still. Oh.
Memorized. It's just this and nothing else.
Well, if you read that, so when Fa Shang was dying, a squirrel screeched on the roof. It's just this, he said, and nothing else. Just the mental image. A screeching squirrel being the last thing you experience. This is it.
That's a really strong way to end a chapter, too.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Here's the bibliography. Lots of fun
Hold on,
words.
not just the chapter. Is this the?
No, it's the last of the book. Yeah.
It's a great way to end both a chapter and a book.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's even more powerful, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's the last line of the book. If you don't count all the other stuff.
Oh no, Pan's all freaked out.